So here we are, finally, for the battle of the ages. How long have we waited for this? But we are finally here. On my left is the main contender, the Aprilia Tuono 457. With all its might, with the most powerful engine in this segment now to take on the mighty KTM Duke 390, which has been our weapon of choice for enthusiasts in the sub 500cc naked segment for eons now, ever since it came onto the scene. This is perhaps KTM's best Duke 390, at least in my opinion, which is exactly what was required to take on this Italian beauty. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. So, fight! First and foremost, let's get this out of the way. As far as value for money is concerned, the KTM Duke 390 is hands down the winner here because it's a colossal 1 lakh rupees cheaper than the Aprilia Tuono 457, and it also gets a host of other electronic aids which do not come on the Aprilia. So this one gets an IMU, which means you have cornering ABS, you have cornering traction control. This one also gets cruise control now. You also have a bi-directional quick shifter, all as standard, and even if you leave the tech aside, this one gets adjustable suspension, which do not come on the Aprilia. So if this is the case, if this is hands down the winner, then why are we still here? That's because we want to find out, if you keep the money aside, which is actually the better motorcycle of the two. And that's where things start getting very, very interesting. If I had to choose the better engine of the two, I would definitely pick the Tuono 457. The parallel twin mill with the 270-degree crank has been my favorite ever since I swung my leg around on the RS 457, and it continues to shine on in this avatar as well because it's just more characterful. I absolutely love the way it sounds, especially at full clip. Just the way it delivers the power, how responsive the engine is, reminds me so much of riding a proper race bike. It's also the dollops and dollops of torque which this engine, the 457 engine, brings to the table across the rev band, which makes it so mighty enjoyable. And it stays that way right up to its rev ceiling. So irrespective of where you are, this engine will respond and pull like a freight train right up to its rev ceiling. And that's why, even though the Duke 390 has made a big step with the newer engine to bridge the gap, I still think in terms of character, in terms of actually how enjoyable the engines are, the Tuono would be my pick. But when you start comparing these two motorcycles in a particular scenario, things are not as straightforward. Let me explain. So let's say you get up one day for a quick dash to the mountains and you have these two motorcycles. Yeah. Whatever small advantage that the Tuono has in terms of horsepower and torque, whatever little gap that will open up, you on the Duke 390 will be able to close that gap just by braking that much later. And that is down to the Achilles heel of the Tuono 457, the brakes. They lack the outright stopping power, even though you get sintered pads and steel braided lines. The ABS I feel is way too intrusive, and also the brake fade issue, which has been plaguing even the RS 457 for quite some time now. So Aprilia really needs to get on top of this. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the Duke 390, which has perhaps one of the best brakes that we have seen on a naked motorcycle in this category. You have phenomenal stopping power, phenomenal bite, really good feel, which really allows you to brake that much later compared to the Tuono. The only place where I feel the Tuono can really have the Duke 390 in its dust is on a really wide, long, open stretch of road where it can really flex its power and torque muscles that it has, the advantage that it has over the Duke 390, even though it is about 7 kgs heavier than the Duke. That's where you'll see it slowly and slowly egging further and further away from the Duke 390. Another place where the Tuono does have an advantage over the Duke is actually in the corners. on the Tuono because of its really impressive chassis and how communicative it is. Really good front end feel, and more importantly, the sticky Eurogrip tires. You can carry a lot more corner speed in the corners very, very confidently. That is not the case with the Duke. Not much problem with the motorcycle. The chassis and all is something which we really love, and especially with the adjustable suspension, the setup is there. The only problem with the Duke 390 are the Metzeler M5 edge-rated tires, which are clearly not cut out for this kind of riding. They lack the edge grip, and that's why you do not have the same confidence to commit to a corner the way you can on the Tuono 457. Now, if we change the scenario and we talk about an environment where essentially both these motorcycles were made for, the urban jungle, then they have all the ingredients to really do well. Both of them are really light, they are really compact, they have really accessible 800mm seats, they have tall handlebar, which makes it very, very easy to slice and dice through traffic. But where the Aprilia does better over the Duke is again down to the engine and just how tractable it is. The fact that it has a slightly bigger rear sprocket compared to even the RS457 means that even if you are riding at 1700 RPM in the 4th gear and you get on the gas, this one will pull cleanly without any juddering and will get up to speed immediately. The Duke 390 has made a big step in terms of tractability, a lot more tractable than its previous iteration, but definitely compared to the Tuono needs a lot more revs. Riding even the 3rd gear, if the RPMs drop close to 2000 RPM, it starts stuttering a little bit. In terms of heat management, both of them are again really, really good. Both of them manage the heat really well. The engines don't really heat up very quickly. Even if they do, as soon as you start rolling, the engine heat comes down very, very quickly. And what I'm very happy to report is, after riding this in the Pune traffic, compared to the RS457, which diverted all the heat straight onto your legs, that's no longer the case with the Tuono because it doesn't have the fairing. So that's another big, big positive. The place where the Duke 390 pulls back the advantage over the Tuono 457 is undoubtedly the suspension. You have more suspension travel, and the fact that it's adjustable means that you can set up the Duke 390 for whatever it is that you want to do. Up in the mountains, you can stiffen up the damping so that you have the support required to ride that hard, brake that much later, and accelerate that much harder. And when you ride around in the city where you want good ride quality to kind of circumnavigate a bad infrastructure, then that's where you can just completely dial out the damping for a much softer setup, which works really, really well. The Tuono gets preload adjustability at the front and the back, and unfortunately it doesn't work as well as the Duke 390 in terms of when you really want to make the suspension quality nice and soft, especially when you're going over bad stretches. That's where that suspension feels a lot firmer and stiffer and more unforgiving. The fact that this one has a slightly bigger tank, 15 liters compared to 12.7, means that you have fewer fuel stops. Also because this one actually gave us far better fuel economy, especially while riding around the city, around 25 kilometers per liter compared to the 20 kilometers per liter on the Tuono. It did improve when we were riding around on the highway. We could almost hit 28 to 29 kilometers per liter, and this one did about 32 to 33. In terms of disadvantages, they are similar for both. If you're 5'11" and taller, then you will find the rider's triangle on both these machines to be quite cramped. It is surprising for the Tuono. I found it to be a lot more cramped than I did on the RS457, and I think that's primarily down to the way you're sitting on the RS457 with the clip-ons, which means you're not really sitting down, you're more leaning forward, so you're not putting as much weight on the seat. But on the Tuono, yeah, I felt that the seat wasn't the most comfortable, just like it was on the RS457. The same goes for the Duke 390 as well. It is quite cramped for my 5'11" frame, but the good news here is that KTM does offer a taller 820mm accessory seat, which I have tried when I was in Spain, and that works really well, and then the motorcycle fits me much, much better. And the same holds true for the pillion comfort as well. It's not good on either motorcycles because the seats are not the most comfortable, and also the rider's triangle for the pillion is also quite cramped. So as you can see, they're a lot more closely matched than we thought them to be. They both have their set of advantages and disadvantages, but more than anything else, these are both brilliant machines. 100% put a smile on your face, irrespective of where you're riding them, in the city or up in the mountains, chasing the corners. But if I had to choose one, and I had to buy one for my hard-earned money, I think, this is a tough cookie. As much as I love the engine on the Tuono 457, because of its character, because of the power and the torque and just how it makes you feel, I think the Duke 390 is a more complete package. There are no real flaws that it has other than maybe the tires, which clearly hold it back. In the corners, that's a very specific scenario. In all other places, it works decently well. I was, in fact, really blown away with the refinement on the Duke 390, considering that it's a single and it has the same kind of refinement as the Parallel Twin, which I truly love. And of course, the very fact that it has the accessory 20mm seat gives it the brownie point required to edge ahead in this competition, because then you have a motorcycle which is a more complete package and it fits everyone. The Tuono is a motorcycle which I truly love, but it has a big issue in terms of its braking, which has been around for a long time, since we first saw it on the RS 457 almost a year ago, and it still exists, and that's a big safety hazard. And the other important thing is, for the kind of money that you're paying, the after-sales service on the Aprilia has not been the best so far. There have been quite a few problems that customers have experienced in terms of the braking issue, some engine-related issues, and also some motorcycles apparently leaning more to the left-hand side. Now, I have personally never faced any of these issues on any of the test bikes that we have gotten our hands on, which would be about 7 or 8. But if you are paying that kind of money, you expect your motorcycle to work well. And I really hope that Aprilia gets on top of this, because they clearly make amazing motorcycles. Now they need to back it with equally good after-sales service and a more flawless experience in terms of also the reliability of the engine, to ensure that these motorcycles sell as well as they deserve to sell. But for now, between these two, I think the Duke 390 is definitely a safer bet to put your hard-earned money on.